Hello, everybody. Are we ready for a little good trouble? I promised the Congresswoman that we would be a well-behaved, in a good trouble sort of way, audience. So it's so good to see. What a crowd. This is wonderful. For those of you who are not with Pilgrim Place, my name is Bear Ride, and I am this year's moderator of this, this wild bunch here. So, on behalf of Pilgrim Place, I am delighted to represent all of us in welcoming our friend and our representative at the United States House of Representatives, Congresswoman Judy Chu. She has been with us many times before and has earned our trust and our friendship. We're very grateful that you're here. Dr. Chu grew up in Los Angeles and has a degree in math and a PhD in psychology, which one can only think might be helpful these days on Capitol Hill. She taught psychology at the college level for 20 years and has been a faculty union leader and organizer. She then served years in local government, followed by election to the California State Legislature and the Board of Equalization. She became the first Chinese-American member of the United States Congress 16 years ago in 2009. Unlike some of her noisier colleagues, she cares passionately about actually the detailed work of legislating, and she serves on the Budget and Ways and Means committees, including its Health, Worker, and Family Support subcommittees. When legislating, she's a fierce voice for protecting the right to vote for all people and improving health care for everyone, to support small businesses and the protection of civil rights and human services. She's been the key to protecting and expanding our San Gabriel Mountain National Monument. Dr. Chu is the Chair Emerita of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and has worked at organizing the coalition efforts of the Black, Latino, and Asian Pacific Caucuses of Congress. As a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, our representative has been fully out there for our shared values of peace, justice, and care for the earth. I'd also like to introduce Enrique Robles, her District Chief of Staff. You back there? There he is. Welcome back to Pilgrim Place, Enrique. We were delighted when Enrique called Jean Boutillier a few days ago and said that Judy Chu wanted to be here with us for a National Day of Action highlighting the urgency of protecting Medicaid as well as Medicare and Social Security and other governmental supports upon which we rely. Now, listen carefully. These are your instructions. After her presentation and a brief response by Laura Jo Fu, on behalf of our resident justice group, there will be a half hour for questions and answers. The questions will be selected from written questions, and I got a note here from Jean saying actual questions, not statements, which you will submit on the little cards that were at the front. And if you have a question in the middle, something comes to your head, raise your hand, and someone from the justice group will come and hand you. And then you just hand your cards into the aisle. Are we talking the center aisle? Okay, the center aisle, or the, I'm getting, either the center or either aisle. So raise your hands if quietly, if not now. Good job. So, Congresswoman Judy Chu, welcome back to Pilgrim Place.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I'm so thrilled to be at Pilgrim Place for our Protect Medicaid Day of Action. Yeah. And I want to tell you that we, the members of Congress, are having events like this everywhere in the nation in different congressional districts because we want to highlight the threat to Medicaid that is being undertaken now by President Trump. Yeah. And so thank you for hosting this. I want to thank Pilgrim Place for hosting today's event. Well, we are within the first 90 days of the Trump administration. Doesn't it seem like it's been years, decades? I mean, if it's taught us anything, it's that the president was lying when he promised to lower costs for Americans. Instead, President Trump is waging a trade war that is costing the average household as much as $4,400 this year. And he's making the cost of necessities like groceries skyrocket. But Republicans are turning a blind eye, instead scrambling to find a way to pay for upwards of $5.5 trillion in cuts, tax giveaways basically, for billionaires and corporations in this country, resulting in a level of chaos and cruelty unlike anything I have witnessed since Republicans' unsuccessful fight to kill the Affordable Care Act in 2017. They are firing tens of thousands of American federal workers, including those in the Veterans Administration, which includes many veterans, without cause. And they're handing over the keys to the Treasury system that processes our tax refunds and information, our Social Security benefits, and millions of dollars in payments each year. Trump has given his biggest donor, Elon Musk, the unelected billionaire, the green light to wreck whatever part of government he wants to, and just so that he can give these massive tax giveaways to billionaires. Now, how can they do this? How could they possibly accomplish this? Well, the only way they can do it is by the biggest cuts to Medicaid you could ever imagine. Unsurprisingly, President Trump lied when he promised to love and cherish Medicaid. In fact, Trump's administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, declined to rule out cuts to Medicaid when asked during his Senate confirmation hearing. So in their reckless pursuit to find trillions of dollars in tax cuts from our federal government for the ultra-wealthy, Republicans plan to slash as much as $880 billion from the Medicaid program and rip away health care for millions of children, adults, and people with disabilities and seniors. Now, let's contemplate what this means. These cuts would be devastating, especially because Medicaid is a lifeline. It's one of the most cost-effective insurance programs in this country. It provides health care to over 70 million Americans, including more than 14 million Californians. In our district, more than 224,000 people depend on Medicaid to afford health care. For them, having Medicaid coverage means staying healthier longer, missing fewer days of work or school, and avoiding emergency room visits that could bankrupt our hospitals. For seniors, Medicaid is extremely important. In fact, it ensures that 2 out of every 3 nursing home residents have a safe roof over their heads. Medicaid is actually the primary payer of nursing home care in our country. For many of us, when we think about health care as we get older, we first think about Medicare. But when the care goes beyond what Medicare can cover, guess what pays for that care? It's Medicaid. And on the average, Medicare pays for about 28 days of hospitalization. But what if that hospitalization goes further? Guess what steps in? It's Medicaid. And so it is what allows for more of a hospital stay, for more skilled nursing care. And without Medicaid, these nursing homes could cost upwards of $100,000 per year, money that most seniors do not have. The coverage is so critical for the nearly 4,000 people in our district who rely on nursing homes for care every single day. Without Medicaid, many of them would have no way to afford the long-term care that they need. So, I want to be clear. A cut to Medicaid is, in fact, a cut to Medicare. That's because more than 12 million people with Medicare also rely on Medicaid. For every $10 spent on Medicaid, $3 goes to Medicare beneficiaries. And that helps seniors on Medicare pay for things like cost sharing, premiums, and services that no other payer covers, like long-term care, mental health services, and services such as dental, vision, and hearing, and even non-emergency medical transportation. In our district, 156,000 seniors rely on Medicare. And they're not stopping at health care. They're also going after the Social Security benefits that Americans have paid for all their lives. No matter how many times Trump says he won't cut Social Security, this couldn't be further from the truth. You see, President Trump and his biggest political donor, our unelected billionaire Elon Musk, are taking a wrecking ball to the Social Security Administration. They just fired 7,000 Social Security workers. That's 1 out of every 8 Social Security worker in our country. And that is at a time when it was already understaffed. People now are waiting on the phone for hours. And guess what? Trump and Musk also want to close Social Security offices around the country. What's that going to do to this wait? 47 offices that they want to cut, risking people's access even further. And let's all call this what this really is. It's a backdoor cut to Social Security benefits. You see, when someone can't reach Social Security and misses a Social Security payment, as a result, that's a benefit cut. When staffing shortages cause delayed payments, that's a benefit cut. The situation is so dire that former Commissioner of Social Security, Martin O'Malley, warned us that given the trend here with what Trump is doing, we could see a collapse of the system and a disruption in benefits for the first time in 8 decades. And all the while, the Trump administration has launched a public campaign against the entire Social Security program. Billionaire Elon Musk referred to it as a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, and Trump called it a sham. But we know the truth. Social Security is a benefit that you all have earned. But Trump and Musk keep blatantly lying about the program and spewing debunked conspiracies about fraudulent payments, for example, to seniors who are 350 years old. Yeah, I can tell you that does not happen. And the truth is that Social Security fraud is extremely rare, and its payment accuracy is very high at 99.8%. But they are spreading these lies because they want to sow distrust in the program. And if that wasn't bad enough, this administration is also threatening our privacy and security by giving Elon Musk and his teeny bopper Doge workers access to Social Security's sensitive data systems and the power to turn off your benefits. And in fact, a report just came out in the newspaper that they turned these thousands of Social Security recipients into dead people. They just changed their status to say that they were dead. And there was one person in February who found that he had been turned into a dead person. It took him 2 months to correct that. That's 2 months of missed Social Security benefits. So it is very, very dangerous. Nothing will put our seniors at greater risk of actual fraud than having their Social Security numbers, banking information, and other private information shared with Musk's unaccountable cronies. And just recently, Trump's billionaire Secretary of Commerce claimed that if Social Security payments were stopped, the only ones who would be complaining would be fraudsters trying to scam the system. Now, how flat out wrong is that? I mean, this Secretary of Commerce cannot even imagine how much it would hurt seniors to even have 1 month's worth of payments stopped. It's so incredibly out of touch and insulting to the majority of seniors who rely on Social Security for their rent, food, and medications. This is all part of this administration's coordinated effort to undermine Americans' confidence in Social Security so that they can justify slashing benefits, and ultimately, what do they want? To privatize the program. Yep, they've been trying to do that for years so that they can take over these companies that would be the ones dealing with Social Security. But we cannot let this happen. And Democrats certainly will not let these attacks stand. We've been fighting it back, and we've already seen some success. Last month, the Trump administration announced that retirees would no longer be able to file for benefits over the phone. They were going to close down the phone line. Can you imagine that? That would have been a burden for so many seniors who have mobility issues or lack internet access. And yeah, they would have been forced to either use the internet, which not everybody is, conversant with, or to go in person to a Social Security office, which could take weeks or even months to set up. Well, just a few days ago, because there was so much outrage on this, the Trump administration reversed this decision. And it shows that public pressure works. But we have to keep going. And so Democrats are committed to continuing this fight, not just to protect our nation's 70 million Social Security beneficiaries, but also to expand benefits and shore up the trust fund so that it can remain solvent for many years to come. Democrats will not stop fighting back to protect seniors who have worked their whole lives, paid their taxes, and who deserve the benefits they earned with a lifetime of work. We want to lower the cost for food and housing, not take away health care or cut critical services or give handouts to the well-off and well-connected. It's why I marched to Speaker Johnson's office when I heard that Treasury Secretary Bessent would be there. Congressmember Gwen Moore and I were so upset because we had just heard that Trump had given, and Secretary Bessent had given unfettered access to our private tax information to Elon Musk and his teenage cronies. And we marched there to demand answers. We crashed into the office and got into some good trouble. Although the speaker hid Secretary Bessent from us, we were still so glad that we were able to shake things up. And in fact, afterwards, the staff said that we were rude, aggressive, and unhinged. And you know what? On behalf of the American people, I'll be rude and aggressive and unhinged any day. Well, as a member of the Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over health policy, Social Security, and the tax code, I want you to know I will be there for every moment of these debates on the future of our health care, retirement security, and tax data, fighting to protect access to care and benefits. And our greatest tools in stopping these cuts are your stories about how these programs have changed your lives. Republicans need to hear these stories. And in fact, we keep on putting out legislation because we need only 4 of them to join us. You know, the margins between Republicans and Democrats is so small now that we just need 4 in order to turn things around and stop these horrendous policies. Now, we stopped Republicans from dismantling and cutting the Affordable Care Act during the first Trump administration, and we can stop them and win again. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. And, you know, stories, protests, rallies, town halls are so great. We have, in fact, a section on my website for people to tell their stories, or you can just call into my office and tell your story. All these things will help because we have to grow the movement of resistance to these horrendous cuts that Trump is trying to impose on our seniors. So thank you all so very much, and I will enjoy hearing your questions.
I'm Laura Jo Fu, resident of Pilgrim Place and member of the newly founded Pilgrim Place Justice Group. So thank you, Judy, for educating us on the dangers we face from the Republicans' plan to cut Medicaid and to undermine Social Security and Medicare. But we can stop the Republicans. When the House passed their budget resolution calling for $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid, every Democrat voted against it. Every Republican, except for one, voted for it. It was the narrowest vote margin, 216 to 214. And as Judy said, we need to peel off 4 Republican votes so that, and the House will not be able to pass their budget, will not be able to cut Medicaid. Here at Pilgrim Place, residents have identified the vulnerable Republicans that won their House seats by narrow margins and who also have a large proportion of their constituents enrolled in Medicaid. We need to exert pressure on these Republicans to make sure they worry that their yes votes to cut Medicaid will cost them in the 2026 midterms. One of them is David Valadao, representing CD 22 in the Bakersfield area. 87% of the children and teens in his district have health care coverage because of Medicaid. It's huge. So a cut to Medicaid funding would be disastrous for Central Valley families as well as families all over the country. For the past 2 months, Pilgrim Place residents have been writing postcards to voters in his district, in Valadao's district, asking them to call Valadao, demand that he protect Medicaid, and it's beginning to work. Our newly formed Protect Social Security Working Group have identified 2 other vulnerable Republicans with high numbers of Medicaid enrollees, and they are Ken Calvert in CD 41, which is San Bernardino County, and an Arizona congressman who is a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, the committee that must hold hearings on any proposed Medicaid budget cuts. But we need your help. We invite you to join us at a postcard writing party next Monday, April 21st at 10 a.m. here on campus. If you want to get started earlier, at the back of the room after the Q&A, Hugh Wire and Barbara Silversmith and others will be handing out our postcard packets. We also plan to go to Ken Calvert's district and speak to senior communities to inform them about his vote to cut Medicaid and urge them to call. So at the back of the room, after the Q&A, Bonnie, Debbie, and a number of other people have sign-up sheets for you to sign. And with your help, we can stop these cuts. Okay, thank you.
So now, a little team of a combination of some of Dr. Chu's staff and some Pilgrim Place residents have been sorting cards, and we're going to present some of them. You've been sitting for quite a while, so this is a 15-second middle of the program stretch. Keep yourselves alert. You want to stand up, you want to shake yourself out, and get ready for a Q&A session with our Representative Judy Chu. Congresswoman, is there a team of Democrats working on a unified message and outreach to us? A think tank that's documenting the Trump damage and planning recovery and renewal when we get a great new president?
Yes. I want to tell you that there is a whole network of people doing a whole bunch of things. So I always say that the way to resistance is to do three things: legislate, litigate, and activate. Yeah. And so in legislation, we have this whole team of people in the House and in the Senate who are introducing bills and issuing letters to the administration and challenging them on practically everything. On every ugly thing that you've heard in terms of these executive orders, there is a bill that is trying to undo it, to protest it, and to resist it. And we are daring these Republicans to vote against it or to not sponsor it. I mean, they have been on their high horse for many, many years on the privacy of our tax data. Yeah. And you know when they were on their highest horse? When somebody went and got Trump's tax data. So they were on their high horse, increasing the penalty for that from $5,000 to $250,000. Yeah, seriously. And now they are just saying to Elon Musk, go ahead, get your teeny boppers and go in there and do whatever you want to our private tax data. That's not right. So yeah, we have a bill on that, and we're challenging these Republicans who just a year ago were on their high horses on this to not sponsor it and not vote for it. And then there's litigate. You know that there have been over 180 pieces of lawsuits. There have been 180 lawsuits that have been filed against the Trump actions, and we've won most of them. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. There is a coordinated group, Democracy Forward, which is getting all the legal groups and advocacy groups together so that they can determine who might be best to issue the lawsuit, but they're working with the Democratic state attorney generals, and they're working with us because we sign on and issue amicus briefs to support those pieces of legislation. And then there's the Activate. Yes, we're working with groups like Move On and Indivisible. Indivisible, as you know, had this big hands-off rally a couple of weeks ago, and they were most amazing. They were very, very successful. Huge amounts of people. I went to 4 of them. I went to the two of the rallies in Pasadena, one in Claremont and one in Rancho Cucamonga. But for instance, in Pasadena, the streets were just filled on Colorado Boulevard, so thick with people, and it went for blocks and blocks. I'd never seen anything like it. And the great thing was how organic it was, because people brought their own signs. Yeah, and so what we need to do is to make sure more people join our movement. We have to go from tens of thousands to millions. And with that, we can stop the Trump administration.
I'm severely disabled. Should I be concerned that in-home health services and regional center funding that enables me to live at home will be jeopardized?
I am afraid so, because these Medicaid funds support so much of that. And yes, when I say $880 billion, what does that mean? It's the biggest, most drastic cut to Medicaid we've ever seen, ever, in the history of this country. This means that our most vulnerable people, including those who are disabled, and especially those who are disabled, will be negatively affected.
Senator Murkowski recently said, "We're all afraid because the retaliation is real." Are you and the Democrats afraid too?
Well, many people ask me why the Republicans are like puppets, doing nothing, not being able to stand up for the most basic of things, and when these votes come out, at first they say they are resistant, then you know what they do? They take them to the back room and have Trump call them. Yeah. And so, or they have Elon Musk issue a statement that he's going to primary them, run somebody against them. And so that's why Republicans just fall in line like little puppets, you know, every time there is a vote, even a vote that goes against what their beliefs were before. But we Democrats, well, the thing that we have to be concerned about with the Democrats is the way that Trump is twisting the Department of Justice to go after his enemies. Yeah. So he had a public speech saying, Department of Justice, go after the enemies. And how about those that held the January 6 hearings? I really worry for them. But they are very brave and courageous people, so they will keep on.
I heard you speak in Pasadena a couple of weeks ago. That day you mentioned that you were guided by 3 tenets: to legislate, to litigate, to organize. Mm-hmm. Would you comment on the litigate part of this? Update us on efficiency of litigation to try to stop this Trumpism.
I'm glad you raised that, because you know that all of what Trump is doing is illegal. Congress issued these funds, and it is only Congress that should be taking away those funds. Congress is the one that voted in programs like USAID or the Department of Education. How about that? How can he take away the Department of Education when we were the ones that authorized it? So that's the basis upon which these pieces of litigation are based. And I am so thankful that we do have judges that are standing up to him. Thank Judge Boasberg. I mean, my goodness. Yeah. Oh, golly. Standing up to Trump and saying that those Venezuelans should not have been sent to El Salvador on false pretenses and not even being vetted. That is not right, and he continues to stand his ground. That's what we need.
I'm retired and blind. I'm completely dependent on SNAP, which is the new name of the food stamp program. How will you protect it?
So Trump is not only threatening to cut $880 billion from Medicaid, he's threatening to cut $230 billion from SNAP. That would devastate the SNAP program. So yes, we are talking about food aid that would be greatly dismantled if this does go through. And let me just say, why do I keep on talking about this being this year? Because this year, Trump wants to get a reconciliation bill through. Why are Republicans so set on this? A reconciliation bill is something you can only do once a year, and it allows you to make changes to the budget, but with a majority vote and not with 60 votes as what is normally necessary in the Senate. So he sees this as a golden opportunity to use this particular device called the reconciliation bill. And so this is why we are fighting so hard, why we are getting the awareness out there about what they plan to do. They started the first step of this was something called a budget bill. And that's where we all voted no, of course, but still they were able to get it through. It's just step one in a few more steps that they're going to have, and they're going to try to do all of this in the coming months. So we need to get the American people knowledgeable about this and outraged by it.
Can we get enough Republicans to oppose the tax cut and the damage it will do to Medicaid? Do you think that that there is any chance that this will continue to work, that we can turn this around?
So I am so glad Laura talked about the plan of action. I mean, that was very, very impressive, because Republicans are facing a choice. Either be the little puppet of Trump and just follow anything he says, no matter what harm there is to the American people, or save the people in their districts. I mean, David Valadao has the congressional district with the highest percentage of Medicaid recipients in California, if not the country. Is he really going to harm the 67% of the people in his district that depend on Medicaid? He knows they will be very, very angry. And it'll be a great motivator for them to come out in the November 2026 election and defeat him. And so we have a few more like that, like Ken Calvert in Palm Springs, Santa Bernardino area, another Republican in one of those swing districts. There's also Young Kim in Orange County. Yeah, that would be a close by one that we could see being able to defeat if we have strong sentiment and a lot of people who are upset by this coming out to vote.
Hello, Judy. I started working at age 14, and I did so until age 74. Will Social Security continue for me? What can I do to be sure I don't lose my Social Security benefits? It's my lifeline. Thank you.
And thank you for that, because I believe that Social Security is the lifeline for so many seniors. Look, it started over 90 years ago because there were too many seniors that fell into poverty, that were homeless. There was no safety net for them, right? There had to be a way of taking care of seniors in this country. And so Social Security has been the absolute lifeline. And so what we Democrats want to do is to improve Social Security. We know that there are some fixes that need to be made so that more funds can come into the Social Security Trust Fund. And one solid way of making that happen is by making sure that millionaires and billionaires continue to pay into Social Security above this cap. Yeah. So, there's a cap on how much you pay into Social Security of like 100 and something thousand. After that, millionaires and billionaires don't have to pay a single dime more. And they can afford it. So we need to lift that cap, and then we will get the funds that can come into Social Security like we want. Now, there is a bill like this, which I have, I am a sponsor of this bill, like for multiple Congresses. It's called Social Security 2100, and it will make improvements to Social Security like that, and other improvements, because it would ensure that the fund that is given to seniors does not go below the poverty level. I mean, that should be a fundamental thing. But there are other things as well in there.
There's more than one question about stopping the constitutional crisis created by President Trump in refusing to follow the Supreme Court's order. You referred to this earlier, facilitating the return of the El Salvador refugee. We care a lot about immigration. We also, of course, care about the constitutional crisis. Comment a little more about that issue.
So, Trump grabbed Kilmar Garcia, a legal resident of Maryland, and put him in with all those Venezuelans who were sent on a plane to El Salvador. So there he is stuck in a prison, one of the worst prisons ever. But, like I said, it was illegal because, first of all, he did it based on something called the Alien Enemies Act, which came about in 1798 and is only supposed to be used when we're at war with a country. And what it allows for, which, in fact, I'm actually a co-sponsor of a bill that would dismantle this act. Because it's terrible. Nonetheless, what it does is allow for deportation of people from that country if we are at war with that country. Well, as you know, we're not at war with any country, right? So that's why his action is so illegal. Not only that, he didn't even vet these people. And so, Kilmar Garcia is down there. Now this is something that has reached the high level. Now Senator Chris Van Hollen, bless his heart, he went down to El Salvador to free him. And so we have to continue to fight for Kilmar Garcia's return. And that's why I thank Judge Boasberg, because he has steadfastly said that he should be returned, and the Supreme Court actually said, he should be returned. If Trump continues the way he is, then Judge Boasberg is actually contemplating a contempt citation, and it will be a whole series of things that would hold Trump accountable. I think this will happen, actually.
Here's a question which amazingly links the Social Security crisis and the citizenship immigration crisis. I have a retired friend, a colonel in the armed forces, who received a notice from Social Security to show proof of citizenship. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, my goodness. So there are so many situations now where people are being asked to prove that they are U.S. citizens. And in fact, that is one terrible example, but there are other terrible examples too. Actually, there was a bill that was just passed by the Republicans in the House. This was just this last Thursday before I came here. And what it would do is it would mandate that women and all people show that bring proof that they are U.S. citizens. Yeah. And you know that, especially if their names are different currently than what it was when they were born. And you have to do it in person. Yeah, to vote. Can you imagine doing that? And the main means of proof would be a birth certificate or a passport, but a passport costs $130, and how quick does a passport come? Right? So, yeah, they are requiring this U.S. citizenship in all kinds of venues, and it's not right.
Lawyers, universities, other groups, fired essential federal workers are organizing to fight back against the cruelty. How do we Social Security recipients do the same?
Yes. Well, we have to bring awareness to what they are trying to do to Social Security. So you can have town halls just on Social Security. I just had a press conference on Tuesday. I went in front of the Pasadena Social Security office, and thank goodness so many seniors came, and they stood behind me, and they also spoke about Social Security and how much it means to them and how it is their lifeline. And so we wanted to draw awareness to the danger that exists with the Trump administration and all these actions that they're taking. So be sure to spread that information out, because I'm not sure how many people are really knowledgeable about it, but we have to make everybody as keenly aware about it as possible.
What do you need, friend? How can we best work with you?
Well, I tell you, we have to grow our movement. And that means getting everybody involved, getting everybody aware, making sure everybody knows what threats there are, and then fighting against it. Now, I talk about building the movement. There have been people that said to me, oh, I'm just one person. What does that mean? One turns into 10, turns into 1,000, turns into 1,000,000. And you know what? I read somewhere about dictatorships and when they kind of succumb to the people. And it's like about 3% of the population. When they start rising up, then that government, that dictatorship, has to respond. They cannot ignore it. That's millions of people. But seeing the sentiment that I see around here, I think that we have the potential for doing this, because I've never seen so many people more activated, and on both sides of the aisle, too. Yeah.
Voting rights. How do we protect the voting rights against efforts to reduce access to voting?
This so-called SAVE Act is the worst voter suppression bill that I have ever seen. To demand that everybody goes and prove that they are U.S. citizens. You know, there are 69 million women who've changed their names in this country. Of course, you know, this was kind of like the norm for many, many decades. And so they would have to go in person to a DMV office to prove that they are citizens. And also, not everybody has a birth certificate. Did you know that a quarter of people don't have passports too? Or maybe it's half, I think. A lot of people don't have passports. But there are people who don't have birth certificates, and maybe, you know, they're 80 years old, and maybe they live here, but they were born in, you know, in Georgia or something. How are you going to retrieve that? You know, not without a lot of effort, which could take months. And so this is a way of suppressing voter turnout. And not only that, guess what? They want to impose a $5,000 fine on any elected official who lets this happen. So they want to punish them too, even though that elected official or election officer may know nothing about what just occurred.
This will take a one-word answer. Will covered California be impacted by any cuts to Medicaid?
Of course, of course. This whole system works together. Covered California administers the Affordable Care Act, but we need to piece together all these different parts of our healthcare system in order to make it work. Just like I was telling you that Medicare is so closely aligned with Medicaid. And in order for people to get the full range of healthcare, we need to have both in functional operation. So, yes.
I'm always wondering what's most effective. I've been writing emails to Republican senators in other states. Is it worth the effort? Does it make a difference? Would phone calls be better?
Well, I think that the postcard campaign is really great. I think that when you reach the voters, which I understand you're doing, yeah, that's okay. So you're reaching voters and letting them know how you feel about this, and I think that's really effective. I think calling your House representatives and senators is good. I know that I always get my updates. I get my updates on a weekly basis in terms of what people are calling in about and what their issues, what issues are most important to them and how they feel about it. And actually, that gives me the ability to go and speak to the public about how people are really feeling. So I think that's great. I do have to say, House members and senators generally pay attention to the folks in their districts. But the way you can really, really influence elections, I think, is this post writing where it's like a people-to-people kind of thing for people out there.
What's happening to the Administration for Community Living Program and the Older Americans Act?
Well, so far there isn't a direct dismantling of it. But look, Health and Human Services, did you know that they fired 10,000 of them? Yeah, it was just 2-3 weeks ago. And these thousands of workers go to the Health and Human Services building one morning, and they put in their key card, and the way they knew that they were fired is it turned red instead of green. I kid you not. That's how they fired people. But think about this. These kinds of really important programs, how will they be administered if Health and Human Services is dismantled? How are we going to, approve drugs, like if the FDA has half its staff gone? How are we going to be able to find cures for Alzheimer's, if the staff are fired and dismantled? And in fact, you know that there's a measles outbreak in Texas. So they were just about to do measles vaccine town halls down there and vaccination events. And because of this firing, all canceled.
This is not on a card. Do you realize that there's probably 200 of your colleagues who couldn't even have said what department the programs I just asked about are located in and wouldn't have the clue to be able to answer that question? You don't have to answer that one. And I'm going to, would somebody bring his card forward? This changes the subject to see how this cut affects the whole world. How do you see our abandoning of Ukraine and Europe related to Trump's threats to the sick and the elderly here at home?
I think one of the worst actions that could take place is abandoning Ukraine. Trump has already stopped all aid to Ukraine, and he is just allowing Russia to bomb Ukraine and to ultimately take over Ukraine. Thank goodness the European countries are stepping up into the void. But I tell you, if Ukraine falls, then Russia will continue on to the other countries that it lost when the Soviet Union was dismantled. They will continue on, and then of course, NATO will have to activate, and what we could see is World War III. Yeah. And, well, I think the thing that all of this has in common with regard to President Trump is he wants to be the bully of the world. He's not stopping at the U.S. Bully of the world, taking over Greenland, the Panama Canal, Gaza, and letting, yeah, how about Canada? Yeah, the 51st state. Yeah, and of course he wants to let Russia do anything that it wants. And hey, what about tariffs? What about tariffs that will make life more expensive for every one of us? He imposed those tariffs on every country because he wanted to be the bully of the world. And this will cost every American so much more, but you know what? He wants each country and each corporation to go on bended knee to him to ask for an exemption. And again, it goes back to being the bully of the world. But what also worries me is that it lays the groundwork for corruption. Huge amounts of corruption. Will you get a better deal if you go to Mar-a-Lago? Get a big old membership there and pay huge amounts of there? Yeah, probably. So what we have in common is he wants to, in his actions, is that he wants to give, $5.5 trillion of giveaways to his billionaire friends. In order to do that, he has to cut Medicaid and SNAP. And with that, he can be even a more powerful dictator, authoritarian dictator, and then he wants to extend it to the world.
3 cards asked about the possibility of impeachment.
Well, yeah. Probably if we took back the House, we would probably start such impeachment hearings again. But we would have to take back the House in order to do that. We would have to have some ability to control the agenda on the House. But as you know, then it would be stopped in the Senate, unless we took back the Senate.
The positive legislation you're working on, how do we get it out of the Rules Committee?
Right now, the Republicans control the Rules Committee, and so it is tough for us to get anything out. But strangely enough, I've gotten a couple of pieces of legislation out of the floor. The latest one was my bill on giving a tax extension to people in disaster areas. Like, what happens is that a governor of a state could declare a disaster, but you won't get the relief for filing your taxes unless the president declares it a disaster. So it has to be a federal disaster in order for you to get an extension on paying your taxes. Well, my bill said if the governor declares it, then that would allow for the extension of tax filing. And it passed out of the House.
Before we let you go on to your next one of these, a word about personality and person. How do you find the optimism to be as positive you are in the fight back? How do you keep from, ducking or just waiting and maybe hoping that somebody else will carry this fight forward? Talk a little bit, please, about your own ability to be in this struggle in the way that you are, and then we're going to let you go.
Well, I tell you, I have been very inspired by what I've seen out there. And can one person make a difference? Well, there's a woman named Tammy Silver who's on the Pasadena Community College Board, and she just felt so outraged about all this that she decided herself to do a protest in front of the Tesla in Pasadena. Yeah, they called it the Tesla takedown. And so she just then emailed all her friends, used social media, and she was able to get like 100 people out there. But then, each week it grew, and it became 300, and then 700, and then the big hands-off rally was there, and it was thousands. So I tell you, I just am so admiring of people who are putting forth the energy, who are saying, yes, we must protest, and are really getting out there. And I just really thank each and every one of you, because you are here to learn more and to be able to protest what Trump is doing to our country. So I thank you for that. That gives me hope, optimism, and energy. Thank you.